Right, welcome to the Real In interview. And today we would like to welcome the director of hashtag Homecoming, Soumyajit Majumdar. Soumyajit, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you, Bhaskar. Thank you for inviting me for this session.
It's great to have you. Sorry it's taken so long to to arrange this. Life gets in the way. Things get a little bit hectic.
No, no worries. In between, we had the entire December and January. So that was in winter. It's good not to keep engagements more. So, or from my side. So, yeah.
So to start off with, taking you right back, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what when you were a child, what were your plans? Did you always plan to be a filmmaker, or did you have a completely different path and then, got drawn towards the arts?
I come from a very culturally inclined family, but none of them have been into the interests I have been in technically, except singing. But they are very much into music. My father is a Rabindra Sangeet singer. My mother
Wow.
sings ghazals. In fact, they sang to each other when they met in an arranged marriage setup. My grandfather, in fact, was chief sound engineer at HMV, and before or around that, he was also working in Choudhury Rai's films as a
Wow.
sound engineer. In fact, when I met Shandip Ray, he's himself a prolific filmmaker, son of
Yeah.
Satyajit Ray. So when I met him last year at the Los Angeles Mangla Film Festival, I was amazed that he would actually watch through the film, though he didn't know about me before then that I have a connect with him of sorts. But
Mhm.
since he loved the film and his wife was also in tears, I was also thinking about my grandfather back then, who passed away around 15 years back. Then he was very happy, would have been very happy to hear this because when Sandeep Ray met me and I mentioned to him about my grandfather, he was like, "Arey, uni to genius chilen," as in he was a genius. And I knew the fact that I couldn't come across any of the process he used to attain because sound and music are very close to me as departments in filmmaking. In fact, even if like in like a indoor film like Homecoming, it took a lot of time for my friends who are also designers and mixing engineers for the film to realize that I am very finicky about sound designing or sound per se because usually in films the director doesn't have so much kind of like a pickiness into such departments, but that
Mhm.
is what they were also lamenting about. So anyway, coming back to the point, yeah, so there was there was a lot of art into the family. Then I studied in a school called South Point, which in fact has a lot of students, houses a lot of students and staff. In fact, there's from section A to H, there's a morning batch of 70 students in each, and in afternoon there's
Wow.
the same from 12 to 5. So pretty much my observation skills started from there, and then suddenly the writing skills maybe emerged because it's also I've been lucky to have been part of such institutions where maybe a teacher points out, okay, you write, your essay writing skills are good, maybe you should try your handed writing. So these kind of guidances I'm very lucky enough to have received. Then in high school, theater happened, and
Mhm.
theater happened in a very big way, in such a way that when I was studying after school, when I graduated, when I went to college for graduation rather, and I started or rather inter-institutional independent group
Mhm.
with all my friends I had met across in different schools and colleges, in schools rather, during the inter-school fests that were ongoing in Calcutta.
Mhm.
And most of them came together. And what you see behind me is the logo of that look,
Yeah.
the theater group we started.
Mhm.
And part of it trickled down through memories into Homecoming. And in fact, Lok produced it as well. So it was kind of a full circle.
Yeah.
And filmmaking was always a dream to be because I think I remember watching Ritwan Ghosh's films. He's a
Mhm.
master dramatist in filmmaking, and
Sure.
I wanted to get into the screen to somehow, after watching his films, to maybe tell sensitive stories because I was a very I was as a kid I was not in much into fish and football like other Bangalis or Bengalis, but I was constantly into maybe sensitive art, you might say. So
Mhm.
someone from my school. He's a super senior, though 20 years senior to me back then. But then watching Rituparna Ghosh's films made me realize that okay, your local stories can also be global and can talk about global because emotions are ultimately global. So
Mhm.
I have to somehow figure myself into becoming a film practitioner. So that's how that seeds were born.
Okay. So you've also mentioned the Rituparna Ghosh films, but in both in Calcutta and in I suppose in Bollywood as well, in India overall, alongside the Rituparna Ghosh films, particularly in Calcutta, there were the Prosenjit films, and there was I think that was the period of the South remakes. Um, did you watch those films as well, or did you kind of stick to the Rituparna Ghosh, Gautam
Uh,
Ghosh, those sort of
not really, but that's actually from the love for cinema. I've been interested in varied forms of
yeah.
films as well. I've had my staple Bollywood diet, so I've also engaged in watching world cinema primarily from high school, and then when I went to study films in St. Xavier's, then it happened. But I've been born and brought up over all kinds of cinema, the golden age of Bengali cinema, the 70s
Mm,
films.
mhm,
uh, my most authentic tryst, I would say, with cinema was watching the filmography of Satyajit Ray on a trot,
yeah.
watching Truffaut on a trot. From French New Wave cinema has inspired me a lot also.
Mm,
And the 80s films which NFTC used to produce,
yeah.
the Salim Ragri, Jani Bido Yaro, and all of
Yes.
it, and in fact, the stories behind them, the story,
Mhm,
like how those films were made, how
yeah.
FTI batchmates came together, and I could relate it with the ongoing theater scenario we were facing through of doing something which the mainstream is not doing, or doing middle of the road stuff, engage with the mainstream, but then give them something which is alternative. So those kind of ideas were toppling over the head. So I think they somehow found a vent through Homecoming, because I was an actor before that. I
Yeah.
was constantly I acted in around 25 films together from 2013 to 17. But then one day I realized that this is not my scene or my thing, because industry works in a very different way than maybe art and craft should. So
Mm,
yeah.
mm. So with the films that you acted in, you said you acted in around 25 films or so. Um, what sort of films were they? Were they typical commercial films? Were they, slightly off? What's called offbeat, but not necessarily.
No, yeah. There's some were so-called offbeat films, definitely,
Mm,
but most
mm,
were commercial films.
mm.
Most were, because my first film was, in fact, Gandu,
Gandu,
Q's film,
yeah, yeah.
which was screened at Berlin, and I was in first year college, and acting in it was very special to me. And then my second film was Ashiki 2, so as an actor. So
Quite a jump.
yeah. So and then that's a 100 crore blockbuster, Bollywood blockbuster.
So one film didn't get released in India, and the other one made over 100 crores.
Yeah. One film was a torrent phenomenon.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the other one just reeked in 100 crores. So I was exposed to these both kind of sets,
Mm,
definitely at a very young age.
mm,
But of course, I loved to be part of both. I
yeah,
loved both experiences.
yeah.
So I think that then Tollywood Bengali film industry suddenly recognized me because I have acted in a Hindi film, and then and I was doing theater before that for long, around 5 years professionally with Low, which I
Mhm,
was directing, writing, acting, and being part of with an ensemble of more than 30, 40 people. Then obviously it was alternative stuff. So now when the industry noticed in 2013, then
mhm,
on the trot I did those films. Most of them were commercial ones.
mhm.
But they were commercially successful ones, not
Yeah,
necessarily commercial scripts which
sure.
were yeah. But I could I had I could choose at will, so that gave me a lot of confidence, as in, because the scripts I could identify there,
Mhm,
they worked really well for their intended audience. In
mm,
fact, because Cat Sticks was one film I cherished the most.
yeah.
It's on brown sugar addicts in the ghettos of Calcutta. And you see a black and white Calcutta, which hasn't been seen before, because the alleys, dark alleys of Calcutta and such like. So Catchsticks was very special to me.
Yeah.
And among these, and Harar Bomkesh, there was this film of Bomkesh. That was I played a quirky character there. That was also a good film. So all these sets, the working with directors like Srijit Mukherjee, Arindam Sheel from
Hmm.
Tollywood, on one hand, and then there's a Bollywood filmmaker like Mohit Suri. Or when I was also parallelly casting with Lok Indie Studio, our casting and line production setup, I also worked closely on Pari, Kahani 2, and all these films. So
Yeah.
in fact, these experiences, then there's suddenly this French film that comes to Calcutta called Crash Test Agla, and I'm doing it and not knowing where it turned out to be. And in 2017, it's premiering at Cannes. So those made me very excited to be part of those sets. Then it was becoming a loop for
Yeah.
what I intended to be. So eventually, I had to step back and say, "Hey, I wanted to be a director, so let's focus on that."
Sure. Sure. One of the things you've just touched upon, now, obviously you said you've been doing theatre, and the theatre scene in Calcutta is still reasonably big. So do you think
It
that,
is big and archaic still, so it
yeah,
doesn't really matter.
I was going to say,
So
do you think that it does take, I mean, do you think that in Calcutta in particular, the talents from theatre aren't necessarily always being recognized? And it takes something like a Bollywood film, like an Ashiki to actually bring actors into the spotlight.
yeah, absolutely. Because Bengalis have a colonial hangover. I understand of there's a uh, that's how we are very, what we say, prolific with English speaking or understanding English. But what doesn't get recognized is Bengalis hangover for Bollywood.
Hmm.
So, or Hindi cinema, so called.
Yeah.
So so once you do something in Hindi or Bollywood or Bombay, then you become suddenly someone big and someone special. And the big part of theater, which I was talking about, the mainstream theater, which is they celebrate you,
Yeah.
and they celebrate you. And the alternative, which I was talking about, as in the people who believe in serious stuff or new age theater, they want to, they suddenly look at you as a sellout. So
Right. So you never win.
so it's a very precarious state to be, where you're actually, if you depend on or rely on opinions, then you become part of other people's existential crisis.
Yeah.
So it's so that's where I think is a problem in Calcutta. Otherwise, it's a beautiful city to stay in. Yeah.
So after you had gone into film, and you'd done these 25 films, did you go back to theatre? And was that an option for you, or did you kind of feel like the doors were
It
slightly
still is.
closed?
It still is. It's as an option. But but you know what, Bhaskar? I've not said this. Anyone who hasn't asked this yet, actually, it's a very pertinent question, because I've done 500 theater shows compared to 25 films
Hmm.
between 2009 to 13, in fact. But that kind of madness, that kind of going around the country and busking for theater, you can only do with friends.
Yeah.
So that kind of contempt, you're only doing it with your contemporaries, you're growing together. It's something which I think wanted to capture with Homecoming, that the only if these people come back together, they can be in theater.
Yeah.
So I think most of my points, why I am not pursuing theater further,
Hmm.
are towards that.
Hmm.
Otherwise, technicals are there's other point. I don't know how actors manage to perform and stage and screen and all parallel together. If there's one puritan form of craft towards your acting or such like,
Hmm.
as in any art form should be specialized in, I believe, because in on stage, when you're acting or emoting,
Hmm.
as an actor I'm speaking,
Hmm.
in this point, your body movements, your voice throw, your expressions, all are totally different.
Yeah.
and then you're coming back and to shoot for another character, and in
Hmm.
that character you have to face the camera and then control your emotions according to the lenses
Yes.
prescribed there. So I think both require different forms of depth,
Yes.
and it shouldn't actors shouldn't be products in these streams. That it's my personal opinion, but it's not possible to be 100% puritarian in your craft, if
Yeah.
I would like to say.
Sure.
Ultimately we are all contributing with our craft, ultimately with whatever we are doing, our what our skill sets. So I
Mm.
think that shouldn't be diluted. That in future I think that becomes a problem.
Mm. Mm. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think there's also, like, say for example, Anirban Bhattacharya. Looking at him now, looking at the success he's attained, it does make me think: can he ever go back to theatre? It's
He's
an
trying
interesting.
to. He's only one. If to be fair, he's definitely doing trying to do a lot of theater,
Mm.
definitely. But I know what you mean to say. I've seen his Minerva Theater older days archives,
Yeah.
which is obviously not the same with the only one who rehearses and performs right now.
Sure. 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 Sure.
So that happens with every individual who's come up from theater and then gone into other allied art forms, I might say.
Hmm.
So then when you go back to theater, you're not the same anymore, which you have
Of
been
course.
practicing in the theater as.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's again that community, that spirit that is retained, that is there. Then you've gone out from your hometown to somewhere else and you bring
Mhm.
in that energy here.
So these experiences that, to an extent you had, um, did those did some of those go into Shayoni's character in Homecoming, who obviously was part of Amra and then goes and becomes this successful film actress? Did some of your personal experiences go into that?
Some of my personal experiences, sorry, are there in a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some of my personal experience are there in a lot of the characters there, but
Hmm.
I don't know specifically with Chinese character. There's no such. I mean, it might have been subconsciously, but I didn't intently write it. Of course, it's about my experience in the industry, the especially of free spirited uh, people I've met in the industry, not necessarily
Hmm.
female, male and female uh, uh, actors who I've met, they've
Hmm.
all suffered the same, as in
Hmm.
they've all been somewhere caged by the industry. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, seeing as we've got on to Homecoming, how how did that idea come to you? Um, to make a film with an ensemble cast as your directorial debut.
I was there. I think I was after, as I mentioned about my acting stints, which I was part of.
Mm.
After that, I wanted to take a break and write my script to make a film. So that's
Yeah.
how the idea came in. So I went back to this place called Tinchule. It's a UNESCO site tucked away above Lama Hatta, where
Mm.
mostly trekkers or small cars go. There I found a homestay. And interestingly, I was reflecting on my life experiences, which have been like quite uh, eventful because of the obviously because of travels and how colorful how many colorful people you just meet in your life to travel and
Mm.
community artistic work. If
Mm.
you're working in any artistic community, be it a reading club or a theater group, so
Yeah.
it's you just find characters around, and especially also similarly when you also travel. So I
Mm.
was just thinking about amalgamation of these experiences, and then I thought of this a reunion of the theater group. That
Mm.
idea came back to me in Calcutta, and then I worked on it. I got a lot of whiteboards. In fact, if I show you guys here.
Wow. Oh wow. You like your whiteboards.
Yeah, so these are where I just go and write my keyword
Yeah.
in of the thought. And after
Hmm.
that, homecoming, 458 people came in like this. Like 458 people, if I want to bring them under one roof together of these people.
Yeah.
So then from 458 people, I deduced 27 hashtags. That's why the characters are hashtag.
Yeah.
Like these are the prototypes of these 458 people.
Right. Okay.
So those hashtags then made way for those characters, which actually solidified the characters. Though I've
Mm.
been to film school, I'll confess I've not been much into theory classes. I've mostly bunked them.
Yeah.
So I when I go to down to writing, I should have done those. And then I go to writing, I just remember my American Beauty 3 act structure screenplay class lesson, and
Yeah.
not any most of the other ones. So I had to make my own way through this, and I believe that's how organically Homecoming came about.
Right. Okay. Now you've touched upon the characters. Your film is 90 minutes, and you have
87. Yeah.
87, and you have a lot of characters.
Yeah.
About 30, nearly 30 characters. Is that right?
35, in fact. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How when when you were making the film, or when I suppose this is a question about you as a writer and as a director. Um, when you were making the film, how did you ensure that each of those characters were justified? Had there was justification given to each of those characters, and their screen time was justified? How were you fair to all of them?
I just wanted to be fair to the writer first. That
Yeah,
that since I've thought of so many varied characters from these so many names, they should better have a full circle,
yeah,
like a full graph in the film.
uh-huh.
So that's how the writing started after that. The writing started after that with the intention that no character is less important
Right.
in this plot or story.
Hmm.
So
And
everyone
then,
brings in something to the final draft.
yeah, and then from a filmmaking point of view, when you were actually sat and editing the film, did you? I mean, did you aim to keep it to a certain length, and did you think I want to have this film this, or was it just this is what we need to tell the story?
I wrote the script and I didn't realize how long it is.
Yeah.
I didn't even matter to me what will be its length. Though I maybe I should have thought should be a shorter film,
Hmm.
because I've seen one nighter films, like on like if you see or 1 day films, the Before series for example,
Yeah.
they don't linger beyond 2 hours.
Yeah.
So in fact the first two were between 90 to 93 minutes. So
Mhm.
I think those were, and I'm a huge fan of Richard Linklater, and I've been a fan of the American indie films which have come through, and the French New Wave. So all those films lingered between 90 95 minutes. And I think subconsciously that happened. That
Mhm.
happened subconsciously. But uh, yeah, the challenge was to give the graph to these characters, as you rightly pointed
Yeah.
out. It took me a year to do that.
Wow. Wow. So
It took me a year.
was that a year to just to write the script?
Yeah, just to plot out the right space for the all the characters,
Hmm.
and attain a full circle. That took 6 months. The
Hmm.
script came in like the first draft was around 2 months, in around 2 months. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then of course it got doctored by friends and
Yeah.
so, and it was like a party, because I had moved out of home and making my first film, and people were coming from the industry, because I've been an actor in so many units and
Sure.
such, like, so I've made friends, and I'm like, I've written a film, I don't know how it'll be, so come and help me out. I'll read it out to you. So then that's how I think the film got doctored.
Right. Right. So I mean, with you say it took about a year in total to write. Did you ever get impatient during that time, thinking I wanted to start making this film, or were you just happy to let it carry on and until it was right for you?
That's the space with my next film as well. I'm just in the research, and it's took a year already with the research. I've not
Okay.
even touched pen and paper yet. So that's, I just love the process, Bhaskar. I
Okay.
don't I envy people who have time to get into the process because maybe of budget or maybe of
Mm.
scenarios. But I even with smaller, so-called smaller films like this, I want to have the process like them. I want
Yeah.
to have enjoy the process for 5 years.
Mhm.
It may gives me less money or gives me less work. I do not adhere or to those philosophies. I think I just, even if I don't make the film, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, yeah, I just want to be a part of that process. I don't enjoy shooting that much. It's
Right.
shooting is a very industry oriented product now.
Mhm.
So it's a very, you have to finish it in time, and these are the things you have to be diplomatic as a director, and all of these things are around. But when you're writing or when you're
Mhm.
in post production, and then the film is just the auteurs.
Yeah.
So that is the time, and you can rewrite in writing and redo in post,
Yeah.
which you cannot do during shooting. In
Yeah.
shooting, you're just going guns blazing, which shouldn't be the case, of course.
Yeah.
But with low budget indie films, it always is
Yeah.
always is. There's some contention. Anyway, so that is the thing. I just want to enjoy the process. So it doesn't really bore me at all.
Okay. So, moving on to the cast of the film, um, you've got some sort of really well-known faces in, I suppose, Hindi cinema as well, like Shravani Gupta and Hussein Dalal, and Plabita, Borthakur. And then you have some more well-known faces from the Bengali industry, like Ongona Rai, Tuhina Dash. Um,
Soham is part
how
of both the
I
Hindi
mean,
industry.
how did you cast the film? How did you choose, these people?
I've been watching their work, and I, I cast them myself. It was
Okay.
a one-on-one meetings with all. Like I got their numbers from the help of the casting directors I worked with back then. I was talking to you about Pari and Kahani 10 years
Yeah.
back,
Hmm.
and those people helped me 5 years later in 2018-19 to to connect with the actors I wanted to work with.
Hmm.
And thankfully, and especially with Bengal based actors or actors from the Bengali web and film industry,
Hmm.
it was a dream to cast them because I wanted to the world to see what kind of new age talent is there in Calcutta, which
Hmm.
who are cosmopolitan actors.
Yeah.
So these cosmopolitan actors are part of alternative youth theater in Calcutta, or rather youth theater in Calcutta, which I've been part of.
Hmm.
uh, they do not, they are misfits in the industry as well. They are just misfits in the industry. They do not, hence they can't mingle with the industry.
Hmm.
They do their own English theater, or at times nowadays they are doing web content, but they are not happy or satisfied with it. So it was like a party for them to come together, around 20-22 of them to come
Yeah.
together, coupled with the very like prolific Bollywood young actors from the Hindi
Hmm.
film industries
Hmm.
Hindi film industry who came in and were and led from the front, I would say, because Tushar, who's you've seen him as Mummy in Chichur and in a lot of projects.
Yeah.
Shoham was
Yeah. Yeah.
there during then in Kabir Singh,
Hmm.
and in fact, Shoham is a youth theater friend. So we go back to in this room only. We've had where we're speaking. We've had 10 years back youth theater sleepovers over discussing a lot of things. So he's the Godo who comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hussein Dalal is a guy, is a sweetheart. He's a guy I met in Thespo, a youth theater festival in Mumbai, where a lot of young actors come of age from there. So
Hmm.
he was my Bandra. In Bandra, he had a house, and he was my local host.
Right.
As a theater guy, he just left a room for us, just
Hmm.
was of like a kind guy. So I thought, okay, let's go up to him and tell him that I want you to do this character because I've written this character thinking of you, because that's how I've met these people also, right? Like I've seen those people haven't known. I've seen their interviews, their work. For example, Shiny
Hmm.
is a person. I got her number from a casting friend, and I connected with her, and I knew her for this character based on her interviews of the kind of work
Hmm.
she's done. Hussein I've
Hmm.
known in real life as a very kind person, and Imroz has that kind of a film. He's a very good guy at heart, as a
Yeah.
soul connect.
Mm.
Tushar, I watched Chichori 2 days before going to Bombay for casting, and I didn't know who to cast, and
Yeah.
just when I saw Tushar, I thought this is the guy. And with Plabita, I'd seen her in Lipstick Under My Burqa,
Yeah.
and that left a deep
Yeah.
impact on me. And I reconnected. Where is this woman? And I want to cast her. I remember showing this picture to a friend. I want to cast her because she was doing a lot of stuff during then, which were
Mhm.
just about to release, which released on the go. A lot of projects on her,
Sure.
but back then it was there. And Tuhina is an old friend, and
Mhm.
before even she did Apona Sen Ma'am's
Ghode
film
Baile Aaj.
by Riyaj. And yeah, and Ongona this was Ongona's first film.
Right.
This was Ongola's first film, in fact, my first prolific role also in a film, because I had seen her audition and
Mhm.
cast her.
Okay.
Because one week before shoot week, or one week before workshops began, we cast her. We had a 1 month Calcutta workshop
Mhm.
and a 10-day Mumbai workshop. I don't know, for a debutant director why people give so much time to a workshop which reflects on screen. I
Mhm.
remember Hussein Shiny didn't have time at all. They were in between shoots, but we had all night workshops.
Right.
I guess people realize the complexity of the dialogues and the characters.
Yeah. It's a very uh, and that kind of leads quite nicely on to my next question. It's a very dialogue-driven film.
Yeah.
So it's not a film that you can kind of have on in the background and you can understand what's going on. You need to listen to understand, the relationships that the characters have been through and that sort of thing. Did was that always kind of part of the plan? And did you ever think that, this might put off a certain section of audience because you really need to concentrate in the film?
But cinema started like this.
Yeah.
Cinema was always, it was not an event to be celebrated.
Yeah.
It's cinema has always been that intimate relationship with the audience, one on one, even if that audience is present in a community.
Mhm.
It's a one on one engagement. So
Mhm.
there, it's an audio visual medium.
Yeah.
So there, I think I just did what I my love for cinema, or my love for my kind of cinema, has been. I just wanted to reflect that on screen, and it led me to dialogues. It's not that I am only into dialogue driven films or
Yeah.
not, something like that. One of my favorite Bangla films is Asha Jabar Maje,
Yeah.
which doesn't have a
Doesn't
dialogue
have the
until,
single dialogue. Yeah.
yeah, single dialogue. So it was just the fact that these people had a lot to say. This is
Mhm.
a generation that hasn't been heard at
Mhm.
all, and this is a generation. If I think Homecoming wouldn't have shown, it still doesn't have any other reference around,
Mhm.
which is why I think I primarily made the film. I knew it wouldn't have any takers. I realized while screening, okay, this people are connecting with the emotions, because it's too niche for a world otherwise.
Yeah.
It's a niche world at youth theater, Calcutta, cosmopolitan. In one scene, there English, Bangla, and Hindi being spoken. This is the world no one has seen. People will think this is surreal magic realism, but this is what Calcutta is. And
Yeah.
imagine the new age Calcutta, like they're stuck between the past and the present. And there's a track in the film instrumental which we use behind in then the album. It's called Calcutta versus Kolkata. It's a layered every time, which is my homage to the to the city of opposites.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I was thinking that it's best represented through dialogues and through
Mhm.
one kind of a event, kind of one space, uh one safe space where everyone comes together and there are varied people talking.
Mhm. Now, like you just mentioned, the film has a very Bengali flavor to it. Um, there are some things, there's some references maybe that are very, very Bengali. But on the film festival circuit, it's done very well. Were you were you kind of surprised that the film connected so well, despite being, almost quite local in the flavor and in the background?
Especially the humor is
Mm,
also very local in the film.
mm,
Yeah, that's actually what I've been thinking all along when I've been like feeling blessed and happy about it, of course. But then
Hmm.
uh, this is what has made me reaffirm the fact in me that your local is your global.
Yeah,
Your local story, your local local your local lives, they are irrepressible.
mm,
They cannot be replaced with any grandeur or any it's a very uh, new new and fresh energy that newness brings in your local stories. So I think
sure.
I'll adhere to that. I'll stick to making what because that's what I know best.
Hmm.
I know I know my Bengal, I know my India the way I think I can't go and make a film suppose in Malayali right now. I love Malayali cinema, new wave Malayali films are going on, but then I cannot go there and make a film in which is not at least in Hindi.
Yeah,
I think,
sure, sure.
yeah. So in that way, I love Calcutta because it's a city which doesn't have any code of conduct or any any code to stay to. It doesn't cage itself.
Sure. Sure. So tell us a bit about the film festival circuit that it's been on. So it's like I said, it's done quite well, but tell us a bit about where has the film traveled to, and is it still traveling? You know, what's happening with
No,
Homecoming now?
so my first this was the first film which went direct to digital on a prolific world OTT platform in Bangla language,
Mhm.
and after which they waited for a year to buy Hawa.
Yeah,
There was
the
another
Bangladeshi film.
Bangladeshi film
Yes.
which
Yeah.
came in. Yeah, so so from then on, I realized okay, now this is fine. This is a good space because we got 15 million views on two uploaded videos of the same trailer in YouTube by
Hmm.
them. Then
Hmm.
I realized, okay, now we can submit to festivals, and we got the special permission to go to festivals
Hmm.
after the film was released on online on
Right.
OTT platform,
Uh-huh.
which for which we couldn't make it to two A-lister festivals who canned us out because we were there on an OTT platform.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but parallelly, then the film won Best Film at Tokyo Film Awards. Then the one you presented South Asian International Film Festival of New York in its 25th year. We got Best Film, Best Director, and Best Actress was won by Sayani. In a
Wow.
India Global Indian Film Festival back home, we
Hmm.
got Best Film, Best DOP, Cinematography, Best Actress. In Jaipur, the ones who do Litfest, I think they organize it. So
Hmm.
Jaipur International Film Festival, we won Best Debutant Director,
Hmm.
and then at Paris Gonshu Sen Film Festival, uh, we won Best Director. Then there was the other film festivals also. We screened that as the central section special in Washington D.C. South Asian Film Festival.
Hmm.
Uh, Indian Film Festival of Boston screened the film, and the film was also screened in other parts of the US. Personally, I went and screened the film, and in UK as well.
Yeah.
I went and screened the film in London Picture House at Queen Mary's University, and in India also did a couple of screenings in a university in Bangalore and around. So it has gone the independent film route of festivals and independent screenings,
Yeah.
and then it's also on a aesthetically sound global OTT platform. So in that way, I can't ask for more, which actually which keeps eggs me on to make more interesting or give screen to more interesting stories.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that I want to make too many films, but whichever film I want to make, I want to enjoy the process and make because I know that if the results can come out on based out of your vision, then best
Yeah.
is to keep your vision intact and take as much time for it.
So on in one of your interviews, you mentioned that you made Homecoming the way you wanted to, and you have all the intellectual property rights, so you can make any sequels if you want to. Is there a sequel on the cards?
I want to make something on the lines of Homecoming, but I don't think I'll make a sequel.
Mhm.
I I thought over it. Right now, I have no intention of making a prequel or a sequel. I've been approached for the same,
Hmm.
but I think then it's like suppose when Linklater made Dazed and Confused, that was the
Hmm.
70s film, and then he made Everybody Wants Some
Hmm.
much later. and that was an ode to the 80s.
Yeah.
So I'm referencing this because that's also something I got inspired by. That if I make a sequel, it should be a spiritual sequel or a spiritual prequel.
Right. But not necessarily
It's
with the same
the
characters
same
moving on.
characters. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the world is same.
Yeah. How the world's
The world
developed.
should
Be
be same.
interesting how the world's developed. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
if what tips would you give aspiring filmmakers? How what should they follow? How should they try and get into the industry?
Well, getting into the industry is very easy if you're into your craft.
Hmm.
Nowadays, they are just searching for people who know their craft, but then getting bored in the industry is easier. Yeah, so that is what they should. I would advise them about that. If you're meant for the industry, then get into the industry. Everyone, like for example, is Anand Patwardhan sir. He's a documentary filmmaker. He
Yeah.
has worked totally, completely out of the industry,
Hmm.
and so it's basically obviously your love for cinema on one space, and your your personality on the other. So
Yeah.
so people shouldn't try to change their personalities into of trying to fitting into the any industry just for their art's sake, because then their art is because of their personalities, because what they're offering is rooted right into their souls in what they're bringing into the table. So some people who are half-hearted, they might enjoy it, but then yeah, but some people who just want to stick to their serious practice of filmmaking, I think they should try and work with their community, their gharana kind of
Hmm.
people, like work or assisted with a director who you think will be able to make your vision grow
Hmm.
as a individual or as an aspiring filmmaker, and try to get hands on all the departments. Like if I don't know what kind of film it will be, but if you ask me to make a film by as a solo cast and crew, I'll be able to, without VFX, color correction, and makeup, these three departments, I'll be able to enjoy and like proceed and offer myself for the service with all of these. So I think an idea of all these departments is very much needed, especially in
Hmm.
collaborative work where people are coming in with ideas and you are another decision maker in those ideas.
Okay. So unfortunately, we are running out of time. So last question now. What's next for Soumyajit Majumdar?
Um, I'm working on a biopic. I'll say I was doing a research on Parvati Paul, Daj Paul.
Hmm.
For last 1 year, I was visiting her ashram near Shantiniketan in 12 kilometers away from Shantiniketan, and I've made 5 6 visits last year over a long period of time, and just got done last week with the entire research in a documented digital form, and now I want to write a script out of it.
Okay. So that's what we can look forward to. And is that going to be film, web series, or not
It's
decided?
going to be a film. I can't write a web series yet. Maybe I'll need collaborators for that, because web series is the of the iPad generation. I don't belong to that. As in, it's their first tryst with that.
Hmm.
It's not my comfort zone writing a
Okay.
web series. I'm a 90s kid.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Sure, William, thank you so much for your time. It was really great to chat about all things homecoming and film and theatre and everything else we've covered today. So really good to speak to you.
Same here, Bhaskar. I loved our conversation. In fact, you could see I could speak so much and open up a lot because I was asked questions which I haven't answered before.
Good, good, good. Glad to hear that. Thank you so much for your time, and we definitely want to speak to you again when the next film is ready.
Thank you, thank you. Look forward, Bhaskar. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.